twice as high. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere, friends to know and ways to grow, a reading rainbow. I can be anything. Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow, reading rainbow.
Rich culture has been seen throughout many generations. One generation in particular has been upheld as a literary waterfall of expressionism and detail. The lost generation has given way to many talented authors like Ernest Hemingway and Ezra Pound. But of all of these disillusioned artists, one author stands above them all. F. Scott Fitzgerald was born in St. Paul, Minnesota, and was a child of considerable wealth. His parents of middle-class upbringing always kept Fitzgerald uncertain of the materialism and corruption of the wealthy class. The Roaring Twenties was a time of grandeur and unparalleled prosperity. Gender roles experienced an upheaval as women took it upon themselves to live life to the fullest. Flappers were a common sight in the Jazz Age, along with speakeasies and bootleggers. Prohibition led to organized crime and other forms of delinquencies, but coincided with the art and post-war literature that made that period of time so celebrated. Technically a part of the lost generation, Fitzgerald contradicts the usual disillusioned writer with his lavish lifestyle, but his social commentary is exclusive to his work. F. Scott Fitzgerald had many works that he was commended for, and it wasn't until after his death that he was discovered to be an astounding writer. But you don't have to take my word for it.
Set during the 1920s of the South, the short story follows Sally Harold Harper and her cultural dispute with her northern lover, Harry. Her carefree and rather innocent lifestyle is corrupted by the inherited definition of northern mentality, inhumanity, racism, and sexism. The wither and tone is used by Fitzgerald in order to create a dramatic effect that signals the important difference between Sally and Harry. Not until she was trapped in an ice maze in the middle of an ice rink is she able to find that her home is in the South and the corruption and cold demeanor of the people around her is far too distant for her to tolerate. Her full circle technique is used when Sally returns to the South and when she returns to the same exact predicament she began with, which was whether or not she should frolic in the pool. Commentary regarding this previously severe dispute between the North and South is cleverly used and biased towards the Southern-born Zelda Sari is clearly noted.
The story that struck gold for F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Side of Paradise, marks an incredibly important part of Fitzgerald's career and is a precedent for many of his other works to come. Amory Blaine is a parallel to the life Fitzgerald himself in the way that he chased his lover, Zelda Saray, in order to win her hand at marriage. Fortunately enough for Fitzgerald was able to achieve his goal, but the same is not found with Amory, who becomes a sorrowful drunkard until the Prohibition era came, and he was forced into sobriety. After following Fitzgerald's attempt to join the army, specifically the World War I front, Amory begins a quest for self-knowledge and watches as those close to him are taken by death. Left with no finances, he treks back to Princeton in a solemn pace, whilst uttering the famed quote, "I know myself, but that is all." With techniques and themes similar to that of The Great Gatsby, versatile intelligence, and the full circle technique are clearly seen. The story that earned Fitzgerald his life partner, This Side of Paradise, is a treat to those seeking the lessons learned from the trials of others.
In this short story by F. Scott Fitzgerald, the main character, Ardita, is a headstrong and incredibly opinionated young woman who is facing a marriage quandary that she is rejecting with all of her being. She uses her feminine intellect to refute all attempts to have her paired up with a stranger chosen by her wealthy parents, a man by the name of Toby Moreland. She is on board a ship with her uncle when it is hijacked when her uncle goes offshore. Taken captive by the charming Carlyle, she becomes smitten after they share very profound insights on the nature of society and how it has made Carlyle turn to crime. A large irony being that he is actually Toby. There are underlying perspectives on the contemporary views of blacks during the 1920s, as well as the developing youth of that time. The revolt of the angels on the ships named Narcissus are devices that contribute to the theme of the story. The clever technique of allusion is used when the final line concludes with the uncertain note of Ardita kissing. Carlyle softly in illustration, making the entire story out to be a dream. This story was a significant part of the novel Flappers and Philosophers and is still revered today.
Scott Fitzgerald wasn't always a sparkling success. He had to move to Hollywood in order to keep making money for his family. His life fell apart when his wife began having nervous breakdowns and had to be institutionalized. He had died of a heart attack at age of 44. His life was seen as wasted to those at the time, but his contribution to literature and his distinctive style will be forever remembered.